This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo forecast for this Monday, December the 11th. Somehow we are 2 weeks away from Christmas. I have no idea how we got this deep in the calendar already, but here we are. Coming up in this forecast video for the Bahamas and the Caribbean, big changes on the way for our northwest areas. We got another front coming in. That classic December front is going to spell some big changes for the Bahamas and portions of the Yucatan and the northwest Caribbean. It has been a wet forecast for the eastern Caribbean lately. We're beginning to dry out, but it's not completely dry over the next 5 days. And speaking of 5 days, I've got some 5-day forecasts for you coming up in this video as well. So friends, as we get started, thank you so much for liking the video, and let's get into it. So I want to start off right now with what's going to be happening in the Bahamas here, because that's one area that is going to see some significant changes in the early part of the week with that front coming in. The first thing is we're getting some clouds, and we're going to have some rain across the northwest portion of the Bahamas, at least through early on Monday for places like Walker's Cay and Freeport and Marsh Harbor and Nassau and Andros. Now, eventually our north winds that will be kicking in will draw this moisture off towards the south and will begin to dry out later in the day and then on Tuesday. But overall, that front is going to be a big player in our weather here over the next 5 days, and I'll show you that coming up. But it's going to stall out, as a lot of December fronts do, in the central Bahamas, and then it's going to move back to the north. And here you go with a fairly wet forecast for the Bahamas for the week ahead. You know, another area that's had their own kind of wet weather here to deal with lately is the Yucatan, Cancun and Cozumel. Maybe you're viewing us from there right now. Maybe you're traveling there in the next couple of days. It's been a wet forecast over the weekend, and that wet weather continues at least for the next 2 to 3 days. Relatively cloudy skies, periods of rain on and off through Cancun and Cozumel will eventually dry out by mid to late week, but it's going to take a couple more days there. And it's not just the Yucatan. Down the Caribbean coastline of Central America for Belize and Guatemala and Honduras and Nicaragua, some good opportunities for some heavier pockets of rain. Maybe not consistent heavier rain, but these are the areas that I think are going to have the best chance to see some decent rain in that area. Now, on the eastern side of our area here, we're not going to get as much rain as we've had lately. So, you know, the Lesser Antilles, places like Trinidad and Tobago, even up towards St. Lucia and Dominica, we had some good, heavy, maybe even too much rain at time to times late weekend into the early part of the weekend. We've dried out a bit here on this Monday. If you take a look at the water vapor imagery, again, all of the red is the drier air. So we're now entrenched more with dry air. And a lot of you have asked me, you know, when are we going to be transitioning into the dry season? It's still up in the air. It is going to be drier this week, but it's not going to be completely dry. And sometimes that transition, it can take a while. It kind of can stair step, you know, from really wet, and it gets a little bit drier, then it gets wet again, then it's drier again, and you know, that kind of stair step down to where we really start to see very limited opportunities for rain. But I do have some showers in the forecast for the Lesser Antilles for the week ahead, somewhat for the ABC Islands and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and Hispaniola. So again, not completely dry there, but it's very clear to see where the abundant amount of moisture is for the early part of this week, and that is the Bahamas and the Northwest Caribbean over the Yucatan and the southern Gulf of Mexico. Clear to see where that front's going to be going. Again, that front will be a big factor in the weather ahead for a lot of us. Actually, the first thing I want to do is start off with these wind vectors, okay? And what I want to show you here, and let me just make sure that I have the right model as I do this here. I was playing around actually in the back, making sure I got what I wanted, but let's see here. All right, let me see if I can do this. I want to loop this out over the next 5 days, and hopefully it's going to cooperate as I do so. A lot of things I can put on here. The temperatures are actually on the background of this right now. Let me drop those off. So we just have the winds. So now let's see if this thing cooperates. Hit me with some wind arrows. There we go. All right. And the reason why I wanted to show you this to start off with is, again, winds this time of the year play a big factor in the weather that we see. We're going to have strong east winds continue through the Caribbean and the Turks and Caicos and all the way into the Northwest Caribbean. All right. And that's going to spell some rain. But again, there's limited moisture in these areas. We'll have some fresh surf and sea conditions being kicked up by this as well. But again, if you look at what's happening in our northwest areas, take a look at these winds here. I'm gonna let this loop through one more time, but then I'll stop it and we'll go back over what I'm talking about here. So let's start off with what's gonna be happening for today. You're gonna see these winds through the Bahamas work their way out of the north to northeast. And again, purple and pink are your stronger winds. These are 15 to 25 knot winds that we're going to see in the Bahamas. They'll freshen up a bit even as we get into tomorrow. And look how deep into the northwest Caribbean we actually pick up these northeasterly breezes, even like towards Kingston. It could be close to have a northeast wind. Certainly, I would expect Montego Bay to have a northerly breeze there on the northern side of Jamaica, but that's a fresh northeast wind that makes its way pretty deep into the northwest Caribbean for this time of the year. And then what happens? Well, that front stalls, and now we start to swing our winds back out of the south. And here comes more moisture. Nice little twist in the Gulf of Mexico there along that frontal boundary where additional heavier rain is going to be developing, and it's going to keep places like the Bahamas wet here even into the weekend. But again, just kind of a broad brush look here. So even deep into the week, we stay with mainly an east to an east-northeast wind in places like Anguilla, in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands as well. Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like. Let's go over to our rain chances here and take a look at that over the next 5 days as well. So the first thing you're going to notice again is this front moving through the Bahamas, and it will drive some showers even into the southeast Bahamas. There's going to be a big old blob of moisture that's going to be developing again in the southwest Gulf. Again, it's going to keep the Yucatan relatively wet. And then again, limited opportunity for rain in the Antilles and the ABC Islands, but not completely dry. So that's kind of the broad brush look. Let's start off with what's going to be happening in the Yucatan here. And I'll put this back into motion. And again, you can see that as we get into later today, at least some scattered showers. Look at all of the moisture developed south of there towards Roatan and Belize City, and then work its way back up the coastline. And so for Tuesday and Wednesday, we're still going to have some good rain chances. I mean, this is your Wednesday. That's your Tuesday night into your Wednesday. So Cancun and Cozumel, Belize City, all going to be wet. And eventually that all kind of conglomerates to the north with a huge slug of moisture back in the Gulf of Mexico. Once again, spell some heavier rain for the southeast of the United States, and then back into the Bahamas as well. Speaking of the Bahamas, what do you say we go there next? So again, this is one area that I think is going to be back and forth with our weather throughout the week. I'm going to switch over to the HER model real quick here and take a look at, again, the rain chances. The first thing I want to notice with this model is you're going to see, again, the wind, the wind and the rain push off towards the south and to the east. Now, the winds, again, are going to turn back out of the north here. As a matter of fact, let me just kill these winds if I can real quick. Probably allow this to loop a little bit more stably. So, put this back into motion, if I can. Let's see. Come on, there we go. All right, so what's going to be happening here is the front's going to come through. We see that. The rain's going to work its way all the way to the southeast Bahamas, and then it's going to lift back to the north. All right, so again, these December fronts that don't completely clear the Bahamas can sometimes make for some very wet weather. Now, initially, again, up towards Grand Bahama and even Nassau, you'll dry out a bit late today and tomorrow, but here comes that moisture coming back in, and the wet weather will really begin to set back up again in short order Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. So that was kind of the high resolution short-term model here. Let me get back over and show you what's going to be happening with the GFS model. And again, I'm going to extend this back out over the next 5 days. So let's get to the next 5 days. Perfect. And put this into motion. So you'll see for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, look at that wet weather return. It is going to be wet. And even I stopped it on Saturday morning, the 16th. There's another slug of moisture coming in. So if you have plans for Grand Bahama or Nassau, maybe you are taking a cruise ship there. Again, the weather is not going to be horrible today and tomorrow. It's going to be brisk. It's going to be cooler, but then the wet weather sets in again Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and potentially even through the weekend. It all kind of depends on what the moisture does with that next system coming through, if it stays a little bit to the north. But you can see, again, this is Thursday and into Friday, and then even into Saturday morning. That's a pretty wet forecast, my friends, and we'll take a look at a 5-day forecast there for Grand Bahama coming up. So again, we already talked about the Yucatan, but if we get a little bit farther off towards the south here, for my friends in the Belize City area and Roatan and La Chiba and San Pedro Sula, certainly some pockets of heavier rain here that could be developing from time to time. Your best chance, again, is going to be earlier in the week. Look at that rain developing here for later today and tomorrow, beginning to dry out as the Yucatan will Wednesday and Thursday. but even not fully dry there. For my friends in Jamaica, I wish I had a little bit better rain chances for you guys. You're going to pick up a slightly better opportunity for some showers mid to late week, but nothing is going to be exceptional. I will say that the rain has somewhat favored the eastern side of the island over the last couple of weeks. I think there's a better opportunity to get some rain in the western parishes as well. I'll be monitoring that for you, but again, not a ton of rain there. And that's the same scenario for Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. We are going to get some rain, mainly developing later in the week, relatively dry early in the week here. But again, it's very area dependent. I do expect the Dominican Republic to get more rain than Haiti, and then portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico to get in on the act as well. But again, you can just see that outside of a little bit of showers coming in with a northeast breeze, maybe as far south as Dominica or Montserrat. So Antigua, Barbuda, and Anguilla have a better chance for some rain compared to Martinique and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Barbados and Trinidad. So we're not looking at a big forecast for rain here, guys. But again, it's not going to be completely dry. We will get at least some showers popping up in the afternoon hours over the next 5 days. Generally speaking, each day would carry no more than a 20% chance for rain with many dry hours and locations, but I'll monitor the situation. But there's just not going to be a lot of moisture overall to play with. As you remember last week where we had a ton, I remember I was monitoring that huge moisture axis just to the east of you guys. I think it's going to be even drier for the ABC Islands. I don't expect a lot of rain for Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao for the week ahead. A spotty shower is possible, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if your area just stays completely dry over the next 5 days. And if you catch a shower or two, maybe you would even consider yourself lucky to do that. All right, looking at total precipitation here. So this is going to be what it looks like over the next 5 days here. So let me take this out to a single frame. That way it's just a little bit easier to work with for me. So let's go out to here. So this is 4 p.m. on Friday. So this is going to be basically a 5-day rain total accumulation forecast here. And I, again, just want you to notice that along here, the Central American coastline, there could be some pockets of heavier rain. Now, again, it's got to zoom in real close because, you know, we have potentially 4 or 5 inches in Belize City with even heavier rain offshore. That's something I'm going to closely monitor. I mean, can there really be that excessive rainfall developing right along the coastline of Belize? Keep me updated, my friends in Belize City. Let me know what you guys have been seeing. Same thing for my friends in Roatan as well. Maybe 4 or 5 inches of rain in this area for the week ahead. Again, there's going to be pockets of very heavy rain developing in the Northwest Caribbean. That will then ride up the coastline. It's not going to be as excessive for places like Cancun and Cozumel, but still, we're going to pump on a couple more inches of rain there. And again, it's just going to be kind of gloomy and wet over the next couple of days as we swing over towards the Bahamas. Nice little rainfall there coming towards the Bimini area for Grand Bahama on the western side, but towards Alistown, there's 3 inches of rain. So nice little pocket of some heavier rainfall there to go along with some very breezy conditions. The winds are going to be really howling for the week ahead here, even outside of some of this rain, which does fall off a little bit as you get a little bit farther off towards the south and towards the east. For the rest of our area, again, I mentioned Trinidad and Tobago, one of the areas that could still see some decent rain. And again, there'll be pockets of rain that could still be locally heavy. I don't think everyone's going to get over 2 inches of rain towards Trinidad and Tobago, but is that opportunity there? Yes. Now you get just a little bit farther north away from the mainland towards Grenada and Barbados, and now your rain chances as far as anything excessive really drop back down. We're going to see some pockets of, spotty heavier rain here and there, but just not anything that's going to be too significant. I'll monitor the situation, but again, just not as much moisture to play with. And again, notice this, because of the east wind, the model is really favoring any of the eastern sides of the islands, okay? Basically coming and, producing a little bit of rain on the eastern coastlines, northeast coastlines of Hispaniola, and then get back towards Haiti, and it does begin to dry out. And it's the same situation again. I think the model should be a little bit more, have more gradient, shouldn't have as much gradient, to the rain chances here, meaning that I don't know if we're going to get 2 inches of rain near Port Antonio and 1/4 of an inch in Montego Bay. It should be a little bit more averaged out than that, but at least that opportunity will be there. It'll be a better chance than what you had last week. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the rain chances in your area. Again, Trinidad and Tobago, 30% chance today, 20% chance for tomorrow, but still pockets of heavy rain possible. Barbados, only about a 20% chance both days. Same thing for the Dominican Republic. Puerto Rico, slightly better chance, especially on the central and the eastern sides of the islands. Again, I don't expect a lot of rain for the ABC Islands, but it's a completely different story for Belize City. A 60% chance for rain today, an 80% chance for rain on Tuesday, and the opportunity for some excessive rain, especially right along the coastline. I hope that the majority of that heavier rain stays just in the offshore waters. Let's take a look at some 5-day forecasts. And by the way, friends, these pictures in the 5-day forecast, these are actual photos from the location. So if you know the Kingston area, this is actually a picture of Emancipation Park. 20% chance for showers for today and tomorrow, 40% chance Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I'm just upping that rain chance a little bit. More moisture to play with, better chance for some rain in the afternoon hours. But friends, it is still pretty steamy for Spanish Town and Portmore and Kingston. Look, even the Grill in Montego Bay, it's pretty steamy in the afternoon hours. The highs right around 90 degrees. To Cancun. Playa del Fines, I believe here. This is where we have that very famous site there in Cancun, the Cancun sign. 70% chance for rain today, 80% chance for showers tomorrow. The heavy rain continues. Still a wet day on Wednesday, and then we'll finally begin to dry out a bit on Thursday and Friday, just depending on how strong with that south wind, and if it lifts the moisture to the north. We'll see about the rain chances at the end of the week. Certainly lower than what we're going to have early in the week, but maybe be able to drop that down a little bit more as well. Then for Grand Bahama, that's just a picture of a beach. I don't know exactly where in Grand Bahama, but that's a beautiful beach there in Grand Bahama. And the forecast is pretty nice early in the week. It's a 10% chance for rain today. It's mainly about the north winds kicking in behind our front to bring us the cooler weather. But then again, the front stalls, the rain chances really ramp up. And Thursday and Friday, it's going to be very windy and rainy for Grand Bahama, for West End and Freeport and Lukai, with daytime highs that will only be in the 70s. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. You can keep a close eye on us here at Meteo Mundo across all of our social media platforms. In between these YouTube videos, look at all the different places you can find us and get snippets of the forecast. Can always tune in and find out when we have the latest updates as well. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok. We have a Facebook page. If you have any questions, you want to send us a video or a picture, you can email us, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in on this Monday. I hope you have a great week. You know I'll keep you updated right here. If you have not subscribed, you want the latest forecast for the Caribbean and the Bahamas, subscribe right now to Meteo Mundo. Thank you again for liking the video. Have a great one, friends, and I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.